Football Manager 26 is here and this guy is about to start his first save. I guess the big question is, where's it going to be and who's it going to be with? One thing's for sure, you'll be getting some pretty interesting combinations, and I've had a little bit of help to choose my first club. Yes, the legends at Surprise Shirts have supplied the club, and here is what it's going to be. Yes, our first club for Football Manager 26 will be Ajax Amsterdam, and the challenge? Be inspired by total football. Be a bit unorthodox, create a tactic with beautiful, fluid, Cruyff-inspired play, and get Ajax back to the top of Dutch football. Not much then, that's quite a lot. Okay then, okay. No, but I'm actually quite excited about this. It's a decent team to start our FM26 journey off with. And briefly looking at the squad, it looks pretty decent. There are some standouts, such as midfielder Kenneth Taylor, forward Raul Moro, and the well-stocked in defence with Yuri Bass and Josip Sutelo, Ko Itakura. In fact, the whole squad's pretty damn good. But I think it's fair to say it's not as strong as it has been in previous years. And the big question is, how will it fit into the tactic brief? I do have an idea of how I want to play it. No doubt it's going to evolve and grow arms and legs throughout the save, but at the base we're going to start off with this. So inspired by Cruyff, we're going to go for it. 3 centre-backs and then 5 strong midfielders, arguably 6 if you include the attacking midfielder, and up front, 1 man by himself. But when we get to the final third, we should have a box-like setup. So for attempt 1, you can kind of see I've took massive inspiration off that Cruyff tactic, even down to the player roles where they're going to cover the wide areas. Will it work? I'm not sure. The hard part is getting an out possession to work as well. I've got my 2 wide guys who will drop back to be wing backs. Everyone else kind of stays the same. Bit of extra pressure on the opposition centre back by moving my attacking midfield to a striker. It's very much work in progress. I'm not sure how it's going to go. So the goals for season 1. Well, long term we want to get the Eredivisie back. They haven't won the league title since 2022. And when you consider the amount of dominance they had, that seems like quite a long time, doesn't it? So we'll see how close we can push that. Last season they finished second, so we can't do any worse than that, really. Now, another goal is the Cup. They haven't won that since 2021, but the overall goal will to be a bit more competitive in Europe. Champions League, that famous team that won it in 1995. That might be unrealistic, but I want to give ourselves a better chance and a better showing in a European competition. So with the tactic ready to go, it was time to go into pre-season. And I won't lie, it was a bit up and down, but there were signs that gave me a bit of hope. So I made the decision not to make any transfers until January at the very earliest. I'm going to give this big squad a chance. And in the first game against Telstar, it looked pretty good. There was movement all over the place, which is what we wanted. All players getting involved in the build-up. This looks pretty good. Our first game 3-0 win was absolutely ideal. There was another 3-goal win against Go Ahead Eagles and another against Volendam. In fact, let's make that 4 with a 3-0 win off as well. So we even took our form into the Champions League. This one against Monaco, a great start to the campaign. It wasn't all fun and games though, because this defeat against PSV Eindhoven showed a big weakness in our team. So I think I've identified most of our issues. Our defenders, when it comes down each side, are our attacking wingers, so they're having to drop back in my out of possession setup, so they don't really want to do that. So going forward we look pretty good. It's creative, we get loads of the ball. When it comes to out of possession, these guys do drop back, but as you can see, they don't want to be there. Super comfortable where they're playing, but when they ask to drop back into more of a defensive wing-back position, they are not enjoying themselves and we are getting exposed down those sides. Don't get me wrong, going forward it's looking good. 32 clear-cut chances before and it's coming every 68 minutes. But because we're basically only playing with 3 defenders, we are getting exposed. Having said that, some of the football is absolutely delightful and the whole team are getting involved. Itakura there, that's who I want you to watch. He ends up getting way up the pitch and he's going to supply the assist here as everyone gets involved, which is exactly what we're trying to do with this Ajax team. There he goes, down the right hand side, turn into a winger. There's passes galore, that's lovely. But what started off really promising soon tailed off because of those defensive frailties. We've just lost 4 games in a row. Away to Utrecht, Excelsior, Arsenal and Groningen, and all of these games are pretty much identical, dominating the ball and the chances, but somehow losing. By the time we lost to local rivals Feyenoord, we'd slumped to 5th place in the table, having lost 6 matches out of 17. That's not ideal for what we're trying to achieve. In the Champions League, we've done okay. We've won 3 out of 6. Won 3, lost 3. But for the amount of possession we're having in the league, 60%, we're underperforming our expected goals, and that's despite taking the most shots. So we need to get more potent, especially when you look at the XG table, which shows we should be second place. And then it dawned on me, we're trying to play total football, right? And one of my favourite formations and setups is using advanced centre-backs. Why aren't we using them? We've got the perfect squad to try something like that. We've got centre-backs like Itakura, who's fantastic on the ball with his technique and first touch. And he's not the only one. These boys ooze advanced centre-back. Basically all of them. Add to that the sheer amount of players who can play like an attacking midfielder or false nine. There was only one direction I wanted to take the team. You guessed it, double advanced centre-backs are coming in for the second half of this season. The tricky bit's going to be the out-of-possession setup. At the minute I'm warming to a 4-3-3 where the two wide strikers will just drop wide and cover that area. That might help us going in defence. I'm kicking myself that I didn't try this sooner because I've got the centre-backs that are good on the ball. I've got the forwards that can be false nines, and I even got a good prolific striker in Dolberg. He's actually been pretty good this season. If you look at Dolberg so far playing as a centre-forward, he's smashed 13 goals in 21 matches and he scored 4 in the Champions League, so he is very capable. So he can quite comfortably be that focal point with the two false nines going around him. Now the false nines in this setup, there they are, they do go wider, acting a bit like false wingers rather than false nines. And there's loads of options to play in that position. Raul Moro here can jump in one side, and you've also got the experienced Steven Berghuis who can play the other. These guys are perfect because not only can they play up front, but they can also drop into that winger position, which is where they'll find themselves. So look, we've dropped to 5th, but we're still in the Champions League and we're still in the Dutch Cup. So all is not lost. I'm not expecting us to win the Champions League this season. Of course I'm not, but we need to get our league form sorted. Otherwise I could be in a bit of trouble because 5th place is just not good enough. So with that new tactic philosophy decided, I started to look at new players for next season. Now it should be noted I don't have a great deal of money available to spend. But not to worry, because if you look at the famous Ajax youth setup, I've got some big time players that are on the way up. The only question mark about them is, are they going to be too young to jump up straight away for next season? So the first half of the season has been hectic. I've been trying to get a new tactic sorted. I've been trying to work out what players I've got, good or bad, and I've tried my best to get myself a staffing team. That's because when you start FM26 with Ajax, you will be great with no coaching team. It's madness, but now I've got it up to 13 out of 15, and my recruitment team is getting there as well. As far as out of possession goes, I've decided to drop to a 4-4-2 variation. But now with the tactics sorted, I was ready to rescue the second half of the season. Right, I am invested. I am invested in this save. We're going to get some total football flowing with this. And remember, the inspiration for this save came from my friends at the Great Surprise Shirts. With FM26 here, this could be the perfect way for you to discover your next Football Manager save. Not to mention, Christmas is coming. What a gift. And remember, when you choose the FM edition in Surprise Shirts, you will receive a shirt from a playable club in Football Manager 26. But it doesn't end there, because you can customise your choice and avoid certain teams, leagues or even colours. Let's just get rid of those. If you know, you know. And by adding code STINGER at checkout, you're going to receive 10% off. And for even more great savings, select subscribe and save for all these great perks and add in the Stinger code STINGER20 to receive a further 20% off. So once again, thank you to Surprise Shirts for supplying this epic save. It's the first one of FM26 and I'm already loving it. Not to mention the extra support they give the channel, so get yourself a Christmas present for yourself or someone else, use the code, see who you pull. Now with this new setup, there was a definite improvement in performance. A solid finish in the Champions League, winning 4 out of 8. Ultimately led to a frustrating knockout by Copenhagen in the first knockout round. Despite completely dominating, we had a bad first leg. Really bad. The good news was we have made it to the final of the Dutch Cup. The bad news? That Champions League performance and the Eredivisie. Because despite only one defeat since January, and the team looking a ton better in this setup, we're still down in 4th. But there is only 5 points separating those top 4 teams. And next up in the fixtures, we do have top of the table 20. And the game against the league leaders really showed what we can do in possession. That's one of the centre-backs alongside the defensive midfielder and the other centre-back, which means 5 players can then concentrate on getting forward and causing problems higher up the pitch. The 2 guys at the back, that's my 2 full-backs, leaving my goalkeeper to act as a very deep sweeper. Now as the ball gets moving, we are covered out wide by the channel midfielder and one of the false nines. Here he comes. And then we've got all the players surging towards the box, including those advanced centre-backs. Meaning we've got loads of options and our total football is starting to click. And that was a massive result and performance. But then we somehow managed to lose this away match despite having all of the ball. But brushing ourselves down, it was time for the biggest match of the season. It was the Dutch Cup final and it was against rivals PSV. 21 minutes in, we took the lead through the veteran Klassen's beautiful finish. And we were playing some good stuff. PSV are our big rivals and they smashed us in the league, but they weren't really dealing with our new setup. As time ticked on, I set up in a defensive mentality to make sure we got through till half time. And things got a lot better for us on the hour. So after that moment of madness, we looked pretty comfortable, confusing the opposition here with short free kicks. Time to instigate a bit of time wasting, and this is pretty much the perfect tactic for a little bit of keep ball. With time running out, I went back to defensive mentality, and that was enough to get ourselves a little bit of silverware as Ajax take down the Dutch Cup. Through the momentum of that massive win, we actually had a really good end to the season and a good second half of the season overall. And with one game left, we had a sliver of a title opportunity. Twente was still on top of the league, but it was by 3 points. Our last game is against Heerenveen. Twente, well, they've got the tough-looking PSV Eindhoven. Can we pull this one out the bag? We took an early lead on only 8 minutes in the pouring rain. And at that point, we were just 1 point behind Twente, who were still drawing with PSV. Half time, we're still 1-0 up, and Twente are still drawing at PSV, meaning we're not quite there. Into the second half, our second goal came after 50 minutes thanks to Davy Klassen. But unfortunately for us, at the exact same time, Twente took the lead against PSV. Our match ends 4-2, and despite PSV coming back to draw the match, it's not quite enough as we finish 1 point behind and finish second. I mean, don't get me wrong, at one point it looked like being a disaster this season, and we did bring it back in the second half of the season, but still work to do to get this title back. So what I've got to do now is really assess this squad. I'm getting to know it. There is a lot of young players that are ready to burst into the squad that we can probably use next season. I don't actually think we're going to buy many players and bring them in. I'm going to work with what we've got. Now, results did improve big time when we switched to this, but I still think we need to get a bit more ruthless in goal. So I'm going to do even more tweaks, but still maintaining that fluid, roaming, do what you want football, if you like. Now, out of possession, it seems to be working. I'm not fully convinced. I'm just wondering if it's better to stay narrow when we're in out of possession as well, because sometimes when I'm watching in matches, the false nines there, they're so high up the pitch, they're not going to get back into this position here. So I think that's probably why we're conceding goals still. But I need to get more ruthless in front of goal. We are still one of the best teams in the league for attacking, but we only scored 58 times, which is about the 4th or 5th best in the league. And for a team like us, where we're dominating most matches, we need to get that goal scoring up big time. Now, there is work to do in terms of shaping the squad. Like, we've got players still at the club like Wout Weghorst. Obviously, in the way we play, he's not going to get a kick, and he's actually on his way to Saudi Arabia this season. And the big problem position taking over Ajax is in goals, because you start off with Vladislav Jaros, who's on loan from Liverpool as your number one goalkeeper, a 24-year-old, because your backup, Renko Pasveer, who is a good goalkeeper, but he's 42. So we desperately need a new goalkeeper. So I'll have a look in the B team and the under-19s to see what sort of talent we've got coming up. You can see there's a good batch of 5 goalkeepers there, so maybe we've got one there. We can save ourselves a bit of money. I mean, if we'd started with this setup, we probably would have won the league. We just need to find ways to exploit this system a bit further and get some more goal scoring going on. Perhaps we sacrifice a false 9, just go with one of them. Maybe we took in an attacking midfielder in there, because in the final third it looks really good, and in progression we just need to be a bit more clinical. But honestly, I think this is the perfect first team and first save to get me into Football Manager 26, just to get used to everything, see where things are and try things out, because that's what this is going to be about this year, trying things out, especially in that tactic screen. So I didn't want to make any rash choices when it came to the squad and who I was going to keep, so I logged in one of my filters. This is Stinger Attack data, and you can see across the top there various different data metrics that were used in Moneyball saves. And this is going to enable me to really judge who's got a future at the club. For example, I've just selected assists per 90, and out on top by a mile is Raul Moro. There he is, the 23-year-old Spaniard. In honesty, I did not start him nearly as much as I should if you look at his statistics. 13 starts, 12 appearances off the bench, 11 goals, 7 assists. And then when you look at his metrics across here, he scored 8 times at a goals per 90 of 0.4, which is fantastic for where he was playing. And look at his assists, expected assists per 90 of 0.4, but his actual assists per 90 was 0.7. And if you add that to his key passes per 90 of 3.4, he's streaks ahead. He should have started every match. So now I'm going to go through all my attacking players and judge just that. And to make it a little bit easier, I go to filter in the top corner here, drop it down. I'm going to take out all the goalkeepers, all the defenders, all the defensive midfielders, and just like that, it narrows it right down. I can judge who's got a future at the club. I can also do the same for my defenders. I've slotted in the Sting Defend data filter, and I've got all these metrics across here. I'm just going to reselect the defenders, defensive midfielders and midfielders and take out the more attacking players. And this can help me twofold. First of all, it'll help me decide who's got a future at the club, but it also might help me decide why we were conceding goals this season. If I go to possession 1 per 90 minutes, for example up here, I can see the top guys are actually players who are out on loan this season. And my top ranked, Ko Itakura, is the only player who's won more than 10 possessions per 90 this season. That isn't great, so that's something I'm going to have to look at. And if I double down on that and select tackle ratio percentage, I can see that I've got no players with a really high tackle win percentage either. And in fact, I've got no real standout metrics from any of my defenders. So yeah, that's probably a bit of a problem. So next I'm wondering, do I change this tactic? It's a good tactic, it was solid, the second half improvement was great, but we did lack a bit of cutting edge. So if I check out the visualizer and how the team might progress the ball, you can see in progression, we're pretty solid looking with the box. When we get to the final third, however, it doesn't change that dramatically, meaning this front three need to fire because they don't really have support coming from deeper. So that's something I could potentially change, whether it's changing the two midfielders here into more attacking versions or even getting really brave and pushing them higher up. Something I'm going to look at in the pre-season. And what is interesting, of the two main tactics I used this season, that 4-3-3 with the two false nines and the Cruyff-inspired one gave me far more chances created. So maybe I need to find a hybrid of both. When it comes to the out of possession stuff, I might have it right with this one, although it's only started a few matches because the other two seem to concede a lot more chances. Now the one position I definitely needed was a goalkeeper. I put some pretty basic data metrics in just to have a little look around. I do have some good young goalkeepers at the club who might be ready, but I'm going to go for 25-year-old Spaniard Gaizka Ayesa. Now it's a risk because he's playing in the lower leagues in Spain, but he's got a great clean sheet record, and as far as ball playing goalkeeper attributes go, it looks pretty good. So he will join probably the only other player I'm going to sign this season in Matthias Reis from Sporting. I sealed that deal way back in December. Decisions were made on a number of players who don't have a future at the club, and instead of bringing in players, I'm going to use players from the B team because they are that good. I don't need to spend any money. Promoted to the first team squad is Jofi Mokio, Dice Jans, and goalkeeper Charlie Setford. Safe in the knowledge that when these clutch of players are sold, I can go to my B team and call some of these players up. As far as this season's tactic goes, I wanted to make a hybrid of the two tactics I used last season because both had their positives. So we've came up with this. We're back to the three at the back shape, but we've added attacking thrust. The attacking intent starts at the back with two advanced centre backs accompanied by a ball player, with two central midfielders that will go out wide as well in Fitzjim and a returning Sivert Mansverk. This will allow Kenneth Taylor to tuck in behind the front two. I'm going to combine a false nine with a centre forward. Out of possession, it looks a bit unorthodox, but I'm going to try this. Normally I'd drop the wide midfielder down to right back, but Morrow just does not want to do that. He's an attacking player. I'm going to keep him there and hope that Taylor and Sotelo can cover that area for him. And there's a bit of pressure because the season preview has us as the favourites for the title. So we went into the traditional season opener against league winners Twente. Us as the cup winners, well, we look pretty good in our new look formation. So this was a strong performance and I'm happy with the way the team is set up when we've got the ball. You can see Mansverk there's the playmaker, and alongside him he's got two advanced centre backs. Only one centre back stays back, everybody else goes forward. In this move, even the goalkeeper, the new Spanish goalkeeper, gets involved by leaving his goal, getting right up to near the halfway line, Edison-esque, and starting another move off. In fact, I'm going to speed this on because I think pretty much every player touches this ball as we go for goal. So we nabbed the first bit of silverware this season, beating the champions 3-1. There was further reason for optimism as we beat rivals Feyenoord in one of the early games of the season 3-1, and then an early trip to champions Twente gave the same result as the start of the season as we beat them 2-1. And the good form continued even in the Champions League as we go away to Bayern and take the lead 2-1. But the match ended 5-2. I think Bayern figured out our defensive system, so I tweaked it slightly. In fact, we've gone even more aggressive in possession by pushing the two wingers higher up the pitch. And out of possession, I took a risk by dropping a central midfielder into centre back, which enables me to have a wide centre back, which should in theory help cover this gap a little better. And it seems to be the right move because combined with Raul Morro being a tracking winger, it means we've got three players who can get across. and that seemed to have the desired effect. There was only an annoying defeat against Rotterdam. The rest of the time, we looked really good. And with only one defeat at the halfway stage, and more importantly, 2 goals a match, we seem to have solved our problems. The Champions League's been a bit up and down. There was this great victory against Napoli, but home defeats by Porto and Real Madrid mean we're struggling to qualify, but to be fair, so are some other big teams. Now I've got the in possession and out of possession tactics sorted, we look at blooming good teams, especially domestically. Champions League, it's going to be a bit of a struggle with the situation we're currently in for the rest of the season. In the second half of the season, I was able to blood some of the young talent. Abdella Ouzane, 18-year-old midfielder who looks really promising. It's just started to get into the team now with 7 appearances. Another player who's benefited from the change of formation is Kenneth Taylor, now a second striker. He scored 10 goals with 10 assists this season. If you compare that to last season, where he only scored once, he's had a far better time. In fact, he's averaging a couple of key passes per match. Further signs of improvement came when I looked at the defensive data of the squad, and when I checked out the possession 1 per 90, it was led by my centre backs. That's exactly what we needed. And also a good improvement in the tackle-1 ratio. I mean, last season's champions completely hit us. We beat them for the 3rd time this season and the most impressive yet. And this version of the tactic is definitely the best one we've used. As you can see, the difference in clear-cut chances created. And with only 5 games to go, we are on the brink of getting Ajax back to the top of Dutch football. All was going well, apart from the board getting actually cross at me for not spending their money. I mean, how weird is that? We then locked down a win against PSV, one of our best performances of the season, and that meant a win in our next match at home would give us the title. So here we are then, the chance to get this title back at Ajax. This setup has been an absolute dream. Play some lovely football, and out of possession, it may look unorthodox with absolutely nobody down the right, but it does kind of work. Let's have a little look in the visualizer so you can see what I'm talking about. So out of possession, when we lose the ball up here, get to the mid-block stage, we've got our wide centre-back and the tracking midfielder doing the job, but by the time we're in low block, he gets back, so it kind of works. He just got to work really hard, so you'll find yourself having to substitute him off quite a lot, because remember, in the team shape, he does in fact start way up there. So he's got a lot of ground to cover, and that's why we've got an extra wide centre-back in there. So a win here will get that title back to Ajax, and that'll be job done for us, and not spending a penny either. It took a little while, but we finally took the lead from the penalty spot on 28 minutes. Dolberg made no mistake. Just before half-time, the second goal went in. Bit lucky, but it was total domination. And the party started just 30 seconds into the second half. And after another solid performance, we'd done it. Ajax back on top of Dutch football, claiming the Eredivisie. I can maybe get out of this red jumper now. We actually finished off the season with 10 straight victories. This tactic is definitely the one we should have used right at the start. We finished 16 points clear, scoring well over 2 goals a match. So really happy with that, and getting the youngsters into the game as well. Ouzane there is turned into a bit of a regular, and I've made me use Fitz Jim in a position he's probably not accustomed to, but he's done okay. The rest of the team have been really good. The chemistry is lovely, look at that. And who knew that out of possession nonsense like that would actually work? The only frustration on this, was our Champions League form. If I'd used that tactic in the Champions League, I do think we would have gone a bit deeper. So I thought, to hell of it, let's have another go. And the form in the league was again fantastic, with goals going in all over the place. And we take down the league for the second straight season. But yet again, the Champions League was a bust. So my challenge to you is this: take over Ajax and progress to the latter stages of the Champions League using a variation of total football, and do better than I did, because with the training and youth setup that Ajax have, I hardly scratched the surface, and Ajax could be an absolute killer FM save.